So, Yari, what are you dancing today?
Ah, I'm dancing like the white noise in my ears, like the yeah,
Yeah,
but
how did you get on? So today, this week's workshop was a lot longer because it had many minutes of white noise. Did you enjoy the workshop? How was it? Have you frozen already, Yari? Oh, what a great start.
eh?
No, you're back. You're back.
Right.
Did
What
you
do
hear
we do?
me?
No, I didn't. I really saw.
Okay.
What do we start again?
No, no. Yari, I asked.
Okay.
Yes, what did you think? It was a lot longer of a workshop,
Yeah.
um, with a lot of minutes of white noise.
Mhm.
And my question is, how was it? How was it for such a long workshop? What do you have any questions, any thoughts
I mean,
about this divorce between music and dance?
uh, I love the divorce between music and dance, and sometimes I was questioning what did you mean if you meant kind of a divorce from maybe uh, what sometimes we call postmodern dance, but at the same time, I think the journey you were working is exactly um, this John Cage music or like the experimental music that inspired a lot postmodern dance and so on. In that sense, it was they were journeys, and it was very nice because then it really brought me back to question around dramaturgy or narrative even. I mean, they were not only soundscape. I feel like they had a trajectory going somewhere.
Ah, nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how they felt very like meditation, you know?
Mm,
There was a real
mm.
sense of like, ooh, just leaning back and like I don't know, there's something nice for me about like being asked to listen to this track and stay with it. I mean, and sometimes it's just one tone. I think the binaural beats, it's one tone for whatever it is, 5 minutes or something like this. And yeah, it's very meditative, but at the same time, I wasn't approaching it as I would approach in a meditation. You know, I wasn't
Mm,
there doing it for the reason of being
mm,
calm or trying not to think too much or to meditate. I wasn't doing it to meditate. I was there to like um, to dance or to explore this divorce, to explore this question. So this is a very different relationship, but similar vibe. It was nice. It was nice to be in a explorative proximity to this kind of sound and invitation to spend time. But maybe that's because I'm the one creating the sound. I don't know.
I do think somehow you approach music as you approach dance. Also,
Mm,
I mean, you really try to deconstruct music,
mm.
going to the sound that is probably the minimum of
Yeah,
what is music, and then also what it's very clear what you're working in that sense is you want music to create body sensations.
yeah.
It's about that. So also, yeah, you didn't start music, but also the way you then put music together, or what you use the frequency in this case, or the relation,
Mm,
binaural
mm,
relationship. It's clearly that you are also yes.
mm.
there is also it's still on the body, it's still through the body sensation, or even more, because
Yeah.
definitely we are experiencing more body sensation and vibrations through that than usual.
Yeah.
Uh,
But Yari, may I say, I think it's not because I can't not because I want to just deconstruct everything and break it down to its smallest part. I think it's also because I can't choose. You know, like the first part of the workshop where I say, I'm spending a year listening to 365 different genres of music. You know,
mm,
like it's literally out of a thing of, it's all interesting, Yari. Like
mm,
even just single tones or or like the
mm,
simplest thing, and at the same time looking at, I think today I was looking at Thai or music from Laos, you know, and
mm,
it's so beautiful. It's so interesting, and of course you hear relationships to the Chinese pop, canto pop, and mando pop that I've been listening to, and you hear its relationship to blues, Delta blues, and stuff that I started with, and things like. It's also interesting, and like just how do you choose which one to work with and to stay with? For me, just feels really difficult when I suppose when I have been deconstructing everything so much, you know, asking so many questions to
mm,
the point where I'm like, oh yeah, how do these tones, how do these things, how does music on a fundamental level affect us? Um, how is it incorporated in the dancing? Yeah, I'm excited for you to hear next week's episode because I think I managed to actually conclude a little bit some of these thoughts.
uh,
But now then it's a spoiler.
yeah. I mean, it's very interesting because you have a three music, this three long music, and it feels like even the task
Yeah.
that you ask us to do is really like less and less. It's like you almost don't give a task in the end in the lettered music. And it's clear that it's in relation with because music bring a lot of imaginary,
Mm,
a music from a place, and it's
yeah.
also interesting. I mean, imagery from who? Because if I listen music from Lao and
Mm,
I don't have any knowledge, I only project certain kind of stereotypes. At the same time, when I dance, if I have to dance music from Lao, I might do similar things. Of
mm,
course, it depends how long.
mm,
But I'm going, this is also what happened in the first part of the workshop when you asked us to, you spoke about polyrhythm a bit very quickly, but you also asked us to just take a music and understanding that knowledge. And I questioning that knowledge, saying, what do you mean? And this time I thought, okay, it's also imaginary. It's
mm,
also it's also knowledge that is maybe far
yeah.
from me, because suddenly I have to looking for something that is not near. So I go looking for some state experience, but obviously movement from far comes, and they are not far. Also, because I have no idea about this loud music, for example, but are far also with my experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So uh, I think you're also bringing up question about coexistence
Hmm.
somehow, and
Yeah.
mix. I mean, this is also 2026 aesthetics. Mixing is part of the game. Before we had, like in the 90s, we had these things, music from the world. Remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
And that in a way, what it meant, it's just basically folk music,
Yeah.
and it's also, but so I think there is something about this coexistence. At the same time, when you just give it the last, I think it's the last audio with two tones. I mean, you're
Mm,
just saying there's two tones there, one on the right, on the left. They make rhythms. in your mind. You are making the rhythms in your mind. You are dancing. You don't need to do anything else because your mind is already dancing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, no, no. I like that you say coexistence because I was when you were talking, I was thinking about context that we were talking about last week. Then how each of these relationships to these sort of musical phenomena, maybe it's more general, but when it gets more complex, exactly as you say, like the knowledge of that community, of what it means, of where it comes from, of how it's used, and what role it has in that community, and so on. Like it's so context dependent, right? But when you take this community or context relationality and extend it to coexistence, it's yeah, and then it's even more broad. It's like, okay, not only am I coexisting with the history or the lineage of this art form or this musical genre and all its contextual relevance and meaning, I'm also coexisting with the materiality of this moment and this thing. Um, and and also, I think what's really nice is when we start to think through the lens of coexistence, as you say, we also, yeah, include today. It's 2026. No one has experienced listening to that piece of music uh, from where you are today. Each one of us, like when we genreify and like create a subculture or like we name a subculture, it's always retrospectively, like you can't really be a part of that subculture in the same way because you are also a part of today. Like when we do ballet, if we me and you, Yanni, now we do some ballet, huh? We're not doing ballet. We're doing ballet today. We are moving the subculture. We're moving the genre forward through our listening or being with, coexisting with it within and amongst the coexistence that we sort of have and attain to at this moment. And of course, thinking in this way means that to copy, like you were speaking about artists that recreate new works, like to to make a reproduction of something is always to make something anew. It's always something new.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah, we spoke about that last week a bit.
yeah.
But at the same time, I do feel there is this word that is mixing coexistence is just actually almost opposite in the sense there's, I mean, not opposite. I mean, it doesn't, but it means really two different things. One is about being co-living together, and there
Mm.
is a question about coexistence. Also, anyway, a question of integration, of course, and the mixing is the integration part. Is the moment that somehow two things get together,
Hmm.
and and I don't know. This is what I have to say. This is also what I felt in that. Also, in today's, we are speaking a lot about cultural appropriation, but at the same times, we're also very engaged in not reproducing the same mainstream legacies. And so, how
Hmm.
do we do, or how do I do, or people like like me that come from, for example, ballet, and are busy or have been always inscribed with the main monoculture
Mm.
in the dance world. And there is still many people that think that if you learn ballet, you can dance everything.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and all that, and all. How do we deal with that? I mean, if I when I approach ballet, because I do actually still approach ballet, but unfortunately, when do I approach ballet, I have to question also, how do I do and for how long?
Mm.
Because if I stay too much, it takes every time. It's ballet. It's like one of those people that are very charming that enter the stage, or even no, enter a room and everyone is watching them.
Mm.
And this because as legacy, this because as power, and so on. But so how do if I breathe ballet all the time, and probably here I do for now that we're speaking about. But then how do we, how do we recenter or reorient also um, uh, our attention?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know, obviously, but
No,
I think by
right.
talking about it, right, like is the first step, and just like with racism, but by assuming that you're a good person and you want to be a good person, and not actually reckoning with the fact that we come from a very racist, systemic society and place, and our involvement in that society means that we are involved in the systemic racism. Um, by trying to separate ourselves from that, but it is part of the problem. Like the necessity is to actually engage with your participation. So I think by ignoring the legacy of ballet would be in the same way of sort of like uh, pretending you're not white, like pretend like you can't see color. This kind of like very simple thing, right?
Mm.
But we are white, so it's like we need to bring it to the table. Our legacy is ballet, so we need to bring it to the table. But also we need to find greater nuance and specificity. Simultaneously, we also need to improve our ignorance. So we need to maybe it's not a like learning about other cultures and learning about the lesser represented dance forms is really important. And it doesn't have to be cultural appropriation to learn about them, to become less ignorant of what they have, what role they have participated in sort of shaping dance and dance history, and how it's been involved and so on. And also to give nuance and specificity to our own trajectory. Like, I mean, I come from musical theatre, but musical theatre and commercial dance still had the incentive that ballet was the tool to unlock all of the dance. And so I've done ballet since I was very young, but I was not at a ballet school. So my ballet education has always been sort of secondary, or it's not been the correct way, because it's always been just as a sort of uh, accoutrement to something else. And yet that something else was never given such a center stage as much as ballet, because it's considered lesser. And it's such a complicated relationship. And
Mm.
I thought I came from a town where there was no ballet education, but I later learned no, 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 there was. I just was um, not aware of it. Maybe because my parents didn't watch ballet, like
Mm.
because they
Mm.
didn't have ballet in their lives and they
Mm.
hadn't gone to ballet, or maybe they weren't associating with the right types of people who were aware of the ballet education that existed in my town and that could lead to a ballet career and education and professionalization. So then I went to another school which they did find out about, which didn't um, have that sort of privilege. It's so complicated, no? Like the nuance of it all, but it's important that we engage with it. And equally, I think like music is so mm, it's so rich. It has so much like weight, like what music you play and what it means and what it does. I went to a samba night with a Brazilian friend, and I couldn't discern what were the distinctions that they were making. They were like, "Oh, this person is not doing real samba," and I'm like, and then he's telling me how to do samba dancing, and I'm like, but that's what he's doing, like I just couldn't discern. And he said saying this music, no, this isn't proper samba, this is real samba, like it's so culturally specific, it's so nuanced, like
Yeah.
to identify these distinctions are like, and also like how it's upheld, with this kind of talk as well, like that he's saying like this is not right, this is right, like that how these notions are performed and produced as well, like
Yeah.
um, it's a really loaded, and that's why I think at the beginning I didn't want to just start with the postmodernist approach, John Cage, right? What's the fundamentals of music?
Right,
Let's
right,
go
right.
to its best skin, because
Yeah.
I'm not only I don't the thing is it's like when I taught at Escohol, you have people from folk dance, jazz, street dance, ballet, and contemporary dance, all in the same class. Learn, and if I just approach improvisation, which is what I was often teaching, through the tradition of contemporary dance improvisation, yes, yeah, there's a fundamental nature to how contemporary dance approaches improvisation. Movement, space, time, la la la. Like, and there's a strong practice there, but it completely neglects or negates any, or it doesn't completely, but it it doesn't appreciate the approaches towards improvisation that other genres have had and that they have, and it
Yeah.
starts to assume that by deconstructing is the only way to sort of look at dance. And it's difficult because I think that deconstruction is really useful for any genre. Like it doesn't matter, but to ask questions of your genre, to ask questions of your dancing, to say why is it the way it is? Like what caused it to be like that? And yeah, sometimes going to something extremely minimal and sort of essentialist in some regards, which it's never truly essential, right? It's always colored by culture, but like listening to a tone, or I mean binaural beats, I mean how cultured is that? Like it's all over the internet of like wellness, mindfulness, concentration, hack the brain type sort of thing. It's not neutral, but I think it can be beneficial to sort of yeah, to have the possibility, or to be able to play with your notions of what it is you think you're doing and why. uh yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, like uh can you ever be unprivileged? This is back to your question, Yari. I don't think
Maybe.
so, maybe not.
Yeah. No, no, no. But I think, yeah, I mean, it's, thank you for the good advice about how to proceed by expanding my knowledge, or being and educate myself, from to also not be specific on the things I do, because also monolithic thoughts have always a lot of shades.
Yeah,
It's just the mainstream tends to make it monolithic.
yeah, yeah. The normative culture.
One of your first episodes of Ballet Mime was exactly this, when we got Ballet Mime. I thought, okay, ballet people hate Ballet Mime. Contemporary people also somehow also hate anything that is just, So this is perfect.
I mean, I think, I mean, our jobs as artists a little bit is to be contrary, right? To be challenging, um, challenging, yeah. I don't want to say norms, because we always like move towards the norms, because it's not only challenging norms, it's challenging ourselves, it's challenging each other.
Yeah.
It because like subcultures that gets born through challenging a norm, they need challenging as much as other cultures. And yes, we live in a very hierarchical society, one which privileges some to the extent and detriment of others, to the degree that their life is endangered. Like, it's no laughing matter, really, the horrors that come through this hierarchization of society, where some cultures are preferenced over others. It's scary, it's dangerous, and it's unnecessary. It just doesn't seem like it's something we should promote. But equally, the motive for hope, I think the motive for sort of embetterment and understanding and empathy and ethics is one of questioning and challenging. And that, like, we spoke about this book ages ago. I won't find it now. I've stood up to find it, but Alvin Noe's book on entanglement, and because, like, the notion of what the thing is that we're dealing with, and the artistic act of questioning and challenging that thing itself, they're entangled. You can't question something that you don't have a sense of where it is, or there isn't some sort of feeling around its itness. And going back to last week, I mean, I don't think it's a perfect practice in the least, but I think it's very concurrent with this idea, this motor that I'm just like trying to emphasize is deconstruction or criticality. Is this it? Is this what I think it is? Take something that you recognize, even in movement, even in improvisation, a position, a posture or something, and then ask, but is it really what it is? You keep pushing your understanding of it. Challenge its edges, go to its limits and see where it fails, where it falls off, and also really articulate exactly what it could be, right? Really try to produce its singularity, or circle around it and find all the things that are within its mandate, all the things that produce it and sort of create it and form it. Like, this feels like the work we do as not just as artists. I don't think we're that special in regards of criticality. I think we're all critical beings, critical creatures. Somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you bring up this question. Sorry, maybe I go back a bit. This question about challenging norms, or because once we speak about norms, it's also very abstract, because when you say challenging yourself and challenging norms, in the end, for me, is the same.
Yeah.
Because I am challenging the norms that I think they are my norms, or they are around me, and they kind of I'm affected by. But that somehow I make it, somehow I made an opening for them to become my norms, or to call them the norms. Once I call them norms, it's my point of view that this is the norms, and I feel subjected by. But the subjection, it's an act I do. That's also, sometimes it's more visible and sometimes less. But still, so I do also, if the norms is really in relation to the norms that touch me, enter me, I accept, I take, or I refuse, but they are already there. There is something that somehow is the plasticity of myself, maybe, or even what may make me pregnant. Not pregnant. Doesn't feel like what make me like exchanging with the world, this opening, and then I think I
no, I mean, we were speaking a little bit last week as well about habits and how we are, our identity is informed, and produced or created
Oh,
or
right. Beautiful.
shaped,
Yes,
right?
true.
And that in relationship to expression as well, and what we think we are and what we are. And I think that it is this constant conversation. When I worked with the Mexican shaman, like my first job with Fabulous Beast, for me, the revelation was we did all these meditative practices or sort of ritualistic like practices, which provided me the possibility of the time or a means through which to reflect on myself. It was always reflective upon myself. It was always the ability to really question who I am and what I'm working with. Even when we worked with family constellations, which is a therapeutic practice and everything, but we were using it maybe in a slightly different way. And it was never to fix my family, and maybe not even fully to fix my relationship to my family, but to give me a tool through which to reflect upon myself, through the lens of the family, through the lens of this exercise of positioning and repositioning. Um, the yeah, it's I think you're absolutely right, but also the self is not. It's not itself without its relationships either, right? So
Mm-hmm.
even when we talk about norms, they are produced within the sort of intersubjective space, the self that is a part of the world, and is
Yeah.
relating all the time. But I mean, also, like, I can't help but also think, we're in a strange time as well, where decentralization or criticality is um, it's also sort of weaponized for the far right, or for the right, where you
Yeah.
see, um, you know, science isn't true, climate change isn't true, climate denial and things, where criticality has become a sort of a weapon against, um, or maybe not against anything, but to further personal capitalist gain. It's you can benefit by using deconstruction, by using a sort of critical lens to say climate change doesn't exist. Um, and of course, arguably, it's not a great. They're doing it out of bad faith. Like there's not a. It's not a very faithful arguments that they're making. But this is the culture, right? That we sort of
Yeah.
find ourselves in at the moment.
Yeah.
So
And you're right that these cultures also then travel back. I mean, I'm everything can be just a super like forms. We're so easy to deal with this form and aesthetic because it's not really problematizing. I mean, it's not questioning really. It's just using those forms, those aesthetic, those words, reusing words. Just to, in that sense. And it's also to our myself questioning all the time. Oh, am I really doing this?
mm,
Like, am I really busy with this, or is am I really questioning also my ideology, or
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
uh,
especially that's the strangeness of our time because of that sort of radical decentralization, criticality that we see from the right. Then, then people on the left are sort of looking towards a more conservative ideal of like,
yeah,
can we not have the artistic funding back? And of course, I understand it, right? Like we want things to be the way they were, when we had some more social welfare and stuff. Like it makes sense, of course, but it means then we are shifting towards a more conservative approach to politics and
mhm.
articulation. So it's very. it's very tricky, a very tricky time to be in, or like I don't know, maybe it's not tricky, maybe it's the it's necessary. And then simultaneously we have AI, which I think is fundamentally changing a lot of what we're talking about. Um, like we were talking about knowledge, right? And we're talking about creativity and things. And what really is our role in culture, in society, when so much can be automated? Knowledge, like like knowledge is changing because we have now these tools which allow us to use big data sets to surmise very complex amount of data into something very simple, and to find specific formulations of information which we wouldn't have been able to do as easily because we wouldn't be able to read as much as these computers can read. What does it mean then for our role and our thing? I don't know. I just
It's
it's interesting.
yeah. I mean, I'm not as I mean, you're so beautifully sometimes connected with technology and take the good of it, but I mean also it's environmentally this
Oh, horrible.
AI are just killing
Yeah.
everything, and
Yeah.
it's also it's more and more, and it's
But let's
uh
not forget, like techno. It's a technology, and I kind of believe I believe in the thing like if if fire was invented, you can't stop the invention of fire. Like once you know it's possible, someone is going to use it. It's in the world. It's like there's a little bit of this, but we also have to remember, like especially with climate change, uh, there's a lot we are doing in society that is bad for climate change. Like AI is just the next additional problem we are adding to climate change. I mean, even the technology of agriculture, staying in one place, no longer being nomadic. Like this technology is
yeah.
is radically problematic for climate change. I mean,
Yeah,
the
but even
the
the
amount of land
technology
we
of
cover.
moving before was like we burn a place, we we
Yeah,
we grow stuff, we
maybe.
leave, and we burn
Yeah, yeah.
another.
So
In that sense,
yeah,
it's like
yeah. So it's less about like the technology itself. It must have to be about how we use it, and um and what is directing our use as well, right? Like
yeah, but ethical concern of any science as be always on the point. That be it, we never stop science, but we always tried to have to question the ethical side of science. So in that sense, I don't
yeah,
know. I mean, maybe what I just simply mean is that we don't need to go so fast into AI
yeah, yeah, yeah,
normal.
yeah. I
Just
agree.
because
I
we
agree.
want,
Yeah.
just because we want perfect AI doesn't mean we have to make mega computers. Like in that sense, if the technology is not able yet, and
To
just
do it safely. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, so yeah. I will. I have one thing. Maybe.
you are. I mean, you're doing well. Thank you for
No, no,
managing
no,
so
no.
well this.
I I was just because it wasn't democratic, right? There was no democracy involved in the establishment of these mega computers and data centers and so on. Like we had no vote in it, or there was no choice, right? Like it's just an assumption
But
that
we have choice now also that we can make.
yeah, yeah, well, I mean,
I
yeah,
mean, if we push for, I mean, also it's for the first time in history again, we are we're
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
we
true,
are
true,
thinking that maybe
yeah.
AI can, we can work less and that, there is a
Yeah.
redistribution.
But I
Like
think
in
what
this
I'm
pocket,
I think what
in
I'm
the
trying to
revolution pocket, is the
yeah, yeah,
moment where we can do something.
yeah. No, actually, but we would need some sort of form of democracy to intervene in that, you know, that it wouldn't just be for profit. But I think what I'm trying to link to is like um the lack of democracy that has been and is still not involved in sort of making these decisions, even if democracy is the right terms, right? We don't feel like we've had a choice, at least, like we can say that. And I was thinking about work, you know, like in work we are also, so that it's undemocratic often, right? It's like the last place, which is you accept that someone tells you what to do and you do this job, and you know, and they know better, rather than we as a community decide, you know, like our politics is democratic, but our workplace is often undemocratic. And like I was listening to this podcast, the rest is entertainment, and in there they were saying that there was a survey. I should look this up because it feels wrong, but they said that something like 39% of Americans in a survey said that they are content creators. And what does this mean? Like, at least in the podcast, what they were sort of asking is like, does this mean work is no longer hierarchical? You know, like that people are working literally for themselves, both as consumer and producer, you know, like this putting things on social media and so on. Like this, there's a, if we try not to think too much about the big corporations that run these platforms, but there is a de-hierarchization of the workspace, and maybe the the end to the traditional ideas of work as this thing of you do as you're told, and you sacrifice yourself for something greater. Because I mean, and it does make me think, right, that work in a way has been this great sacrifice for us to better society, for us to participate in this generating of knowledge, almost, you know, like creating production to advance the technological future of our world, la la la. And then, I mean, to what end, right? You know, like AI is just another step in this technological increasing of knowledge, like and work as we know it has existed how long, you know, like in this way where we are in a very hierarchical form, where we have to go to work, where everything we do is based around doing work. Like, can this and will this exist much longer, really? Like, if work maybe is like producing technology and knowledge for our civilization to continue progressing and becoming more and more efficient or whatever, um, are we nearing the end, maybe? I mean, and what role will we have as workers when so much can be automated? Like, maybe the next venture is really that all become content creators and we extract value from our life. That life and work are completely collapsed on each other, and no longer do you go and exploit yourself so that you can live, but the exploitation and the living are simultaneous. And could this be a good thing or a bad thing, or are we just internalizing the exploitation even further? A sort of Foucaultian end game, right? Sorry, this is random, the
Well,
random crazy thoughts.
but
Has very little to do with
the only good things is the world in this situation we still need dancers.
But I think it genuinely adds to my questioning and sort of like sort of yeah, my provocation within my work of dancing of like when we dance is it where does that dance begin and life end? When we transform dance into work, does it exist any longer? Like, and where does it exist? And can dance exist uh, within life itself? I mean, an expanded choreography is really beckoning this call, right? To expand the realms in which dance can sort of be articulated and understood. Um, but but now we have to reckon with the practical applications of that as well as
Right. I also think in the end, I mean, it's what also we spoke at last episode, where I mean, those dancers that are constantly in a situation of taking care of their body, make sure that their body is disciplined or is controlled, or where I mean, life and dance is also one thing.
yeah,
I mean, so in the end, I mean, it's in two different ways completely.
yeah,
So in the end, what also you're speaking about expanded choreography, expanded dance, it's almost it's I mean, it's go with our times. Um,
yeah.
but
And
maybe
then
before there was no
yeah,
life. That's make
yeah.
the difference. I mean,
Yes,
like,
maybe.
in that kind of like when everything it's about dance
Yeah,
and the purity of dance, no? It
yeah.
was also like, oh, you sleep in that position so that when you wake up, you have this straight back,
Yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Where does it really end? Actually, this practice of forming the body to be what we wish it to be. And also, what are the contexts now in which we can practice our dance? Because we're hyper professionalized. Like, if you, there's so many people you couldn't speak in this way to, but maybe because of the internet, we're able to do this, and I'm in a completely different place, and
Mm.
perhaps the people who listen to this, thank you for listening. Uh, Maybe they are also interested in exactly this specific articulation of dance within this context that we have sort of found. And it's enabled through technology, it's enabled through social media. I mean, arguably YouTube that we use could be considered a social media. So uh, like yeah, the emergence of this of the context of work and simultaneous with what we practice as well. Like you say, like we're more and more conscious around somatic practices and sort of healthy bodies and careful practices, ethical practices, considerate, politically engaged practices. Like these are so much more relevant in our work. Uh, and it becomes a sort of collapse of life and work into itself, the same as I think we see with social media platforms where you see consumption and production collapsing in on each other. No longer are we only consuming, we're also an engaged consumer, and that role, it means that work and life can no longer be discerned as easily. um, and I think we as artists, I think what we're doing is well, we're trying to hold on to exactly as you say, like let's not use AI. We should boycott AI. We should put up a wall. We're trying to move away from that, but we're equally but we're within a world, a society that is using AI. So we're having to position ourselves in relationship to it still, even if we are boycotting it and sending that sort of political messaging around it.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up also, I mean, there's bring up questions about also because you speak very often about extraction of dance
Mm,
from maybe labor from work.
mm.
And it's obviously for me, it's very important to have a sustainable life with dance. Um, so, I mean, I understood not very quickly, unfortunately, but I understood that, working all the time as a professional dancer was not sustainable, not only for my body, maybe, but mostly it was not sustainable for my kind of emotional and it becomes that I only approach dance in one way.
What about economically, just to ask? Was it sustainable economically, or was it also, do you mind me asking?
No, I think it's a good question because I always go into this question about emotional sustainability or practice sustainability.
Mm,
And maybe I rarely speak about economics. But first, because I'm very privileged as a dancer, as being a man, and also having coming from the background of the mainstream dance, ballet, one of the mainstream. So um, I,
you haven't
I
struggled.
I struggled, of course, but maybe I mean I struggled less because I could just, one
Yeah.
day take a train, go to Germany, make an audition, go take a plane, go to
Hmm.
go to France and performing.
Mm,
That was kind of my life, like the what in the 2000 would call also global trotter or whatever. Like that kind of life we all thought that was the future before the environmental crisis, before
mm,
COVID, and so on. So maybe that was so I just expanded I was not living in the city, I was living in Europe, you know.
mm,
That was then more easy also to deal, difficult, but also at the same times more almost if diversifying the space
mm.
would be more sustainable. Um,
But you're right. I mean, just to go back, it's equally interesting how it was necessary for the sustainability of yourself emotionally.
Yeah, I do. That's why I push all. Of course, I do have to say that most of my peers and colleagues, and me myself, maybe, and I don't want to admit as much,
Mm,
we're doing other jobs because economical sustainability.
yeah.
But I do want to press first because I don't want to say I'm a dancer with a second job as I'm like no no no. My second job is as good as also so there is also is this where I also want to friction just no no. There is no
Mm,
shame. First, there is no
mm,
shame to have another job. Second, it's equally good, my second job. It's not that it's just because I can't dance every day.
mhm,
In that sense.
mm,
Because if I would dance every day, then I would still dance as working, and then this would not still be sustainable in terms of practice. So my
yeah,
practice
yeah,
would only be
exactly.
stage based, would only be about I am working for money and getting money as a dancer.
Mm,
So then I would always do the same kind of movement or
yeah.
activity movement or ethical movement, wherever, value
Mm,
movement in that
mhm,
sense.
mm,
So I think it's where I put, but of course, many of us right now, even more or right here in Stockholm, even more than 5, 10 years ago. Now we are obliged economically to do other jobs. Um,
yeah,
but
and I
with
mean,
that,
yeah. Sorry.
yeah, go
No,
on.
no,
No,
same,
no, no.
same.
With that, it brings also this shame or this
Yeah,
idea of not
yeah.
reaching, not getting what we want, and this could also put us in a very low position in the sense like like I also appropriate that. I want to appropriate that activity of to another job. What can um, and I do think, yeah.
Yeah, no,
So,
but it's really nice because I mean we've spoken about it. It's funny how we circle around the same topics again and again and again. And I hope, I mean, for me, for you, I know it's interesting. I hope that it's interesting to other people. I definitely know that some things come out and maybe we should articulate them better. But this is the nature, a little bit of our time is that we do vlog like content. And you are, Yari. I'm gonna draw you into this. We are now content creators. We are making content for the internet and social media. And and I think yeah, it's not economically very viable. Maybe we would have to do something more entertaining, right? Maybe we would have to do something that would sort of somehow reach more people. And maybe we will. Maybe the more we do this, the greater we can do it. And maybe I'm also compromising. Maybe I should just put myself and say, I am a content creator and this is what I'm going to do, and not sort of try to balance being a freelancer and doing other work and being a
uh-huh.
researcher and working for the
Hmm.
university and what's the other thing I do? Making choreographies, applying for funding, all that stuff. Like maybe I should not have that at all and just focus on this and say, I'm a content creator. I need to try and make money that way. But on an emotional level, I really like this distinction that you made. And it's very clear, like what you say, like not to make the extra job it's just an economic necessity, or something like this. Like I can't dance, therefore I do an extra job. Like I can't make enough money. That it's just that because I think this like finding a way to do what we're doing without the necessity of being burdened by an institution like a university. This could be a PhD, right? But we're so much more free. Like we would have to be so much more articulate, and so on. And also, there's a good chance you wouldn't be able to be involved in this way if it was a PhD. And simultaneously, it wouldn't be so public as well. It wouldn't have this public-facing nature. Um, or, like if I was to make a performance rather than do this, what we're doing, making a podcast and stuff, then it would also be, you know, rehearsals, production, budgeting, finding things. And also you would do maybe 3, 4 months work and then you would show the result for an hour or so. Whereas
Yeah.
this, like we have like a week of thinking and not thinking and resting, and then we do these intense 1 hour productions, which are live. There's no editing. There's a greater authenticity. It's a lot less friction to life. It has a lot less artifice. We often, me and you, Ali, we joke about like, oh, what t-shirt am I wearing? Does it look like it's fake? Like we were very aware of like there is artifice, but we're also negotiating that. So it's interesting. It's interesting, and I've made it very meta. I've come back to, again, like my position and role in doing this, and I also invited you into that as well. But I guess we did speak about content creators, and maybe we are them as well.
I mean, if tomorrow if one day we get money for what we do, we'll change this. And if we get money, as you said, we might also to do stuff that we are clearly not doing now.
Yeah,
You're doing very little like promotion or whatever, like posting. You're like, I put it there,
yeah,
slowly by living life, people get into the network, get into the things, by things, but there is no need for us to get anything there
mm,
apart. A conversation that we know is appearing, or listening, because it's what we do also with others. We
yeah,
just, but
yeah,
also it's more like we we are consuming other podcasts. We are not really consuming ours, so but we have an idea of, that more as a circle, more as an ecology,
Mm.
and not really as like, oh, you guys say hi to us.
Yeah, yeah,
Tell
yeah,
us
yeah,
more about your life.
yeah.
Comment and follow us. Put the ring on, whatever.
Which actually we're not, what we're doing a little bit is we're not asking the people who watch to become producers as well. Like often that's what happens, right? You form these parasocial relationships with content creators, and you feel a burden to sort of honor them by liking, subscribing, or writing to them, sending an email, and engaging in some way, or even just listening, the act of listening and making sure you listen to every episode of the podcast or every new YouTube videos, like, or um, checking on their Instagram profile and stuff. Like we
Mm,
become a type of producer of value in that ecosystem of things. So
yeah.
maybe we're also doing that, or maybe we just have poor numbers. But
Yeah, maybe also.
I'm trying to look at the numbers now so we can sort of be really, really mean to
Life.
ourselves.
Yes, let's be mean to ourselves.
So like the last reflection that went out, we had 10 listens, which is
Hmm.
39% below the normal.
Okay.
According to I'm looking at the Spotify website, and I don't
Okay.
know if this is just on Spotify, because also I've seen elsewhere that we get more listens on Apple Music
Okay.
as well.
Okay. Okay.
But just to also touch on this a little bit more, like Leonora, I love Leonora. She's so intelligent. Like, I hope she does her own podcast because it would be so cool. But she said, "Oh, Peter, your website is more like a diary or a
I love
journal."
this.
And in a way, right?
There-
Like, yeah, it's true. There's something about the archival nature of content creation as well. And yeah, the production and addition to knowledge as well. I think it sits really with me on a sensorial level. Like now we've had this conversation today, and rather than us having to mm, condense it into a readable, manageable essay or text, it's done. It's out there. We can sort of let go and continue thinking and continue playing. We don't have to worry too much about it. Maybe, maybe we should. Like I remember it was you, Yari, who said, it would be really great if Peter Dance with had references. So then I
Mhm.
started adding references. But it's like
Okay.
extra little bit of work. And of course we reference
Uh,
things here, but we've not been making references. But there's actually an automatic transcription now with Spotify. So it's also possible for AI to be um, taking the information from this and incorporating it into its corporate gains.
yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
it's a nightmare. I mean, and in legitimately, as much as I'm working with you with this and this journal-like production of archive, I'm simultaneously constantly going back to my body and my lived existence and the nature and somatic practices, and trying to find what would what would encourage a sense of motivation, a sense of work or legitimacy, a sense of audience and respectability with that practice. In next week's episode of the workshop, I invited practice by Elisa Brewer, and I've been trying to create content around that for the last few weeks, months, um, and I haven't done it. But Anna Greep, when she was supervising us, more Elisa than me, because I was also not supervising, mentoring. I was mentoring Elisa Brewer, but I felt like I was a collaborator in a sort of sense. But Anna Griep said, you should do this practice every single day for a year and not publish anything, not say anything, which is completely the reverse of how I am finding that I work.
Yeah.
And yet I'm listening to a new genre of music every day for a whole
Yeah.
year anyway. So maybe I do have practices you don't see the full extent of.
Yeah, I think also that concept of practice is a concept that was great, but 10 years ago.
Mm,
You know, it was also now the times are different.
mm.
Um, and practice is the concept of in itself of practice also change. Mm.
Oh yeah.
And
Plasticity.
yeah, we are obliged to be with at the same time doing
Mm,
and but
yeah.
maybe, I mean, sometimes I spoke about in the past about this desire for me to see like specificity on stage. And I do
Yeah.
think that this practice every day, it's what it brings,
Yeah.
you know. So that very often has been done like performance with very little, like with a practice that is not finished yet, that is not really at its nature. And
Mm,
because then you take that practice maybe 3 years later when you are in another cycle again. So also the way of how we bring practice back, and this
mm,
really can connect to what we spoke in the beginning
mm,
about legacy and history, and how somehow depending which side are we, which kind of as identity, where we are, what we are exploring in our identity,
mm,
we are busy with that practice, then we go in some modern life, it's fast, we change clear so much, and we are suddenly fragmented somewhere else, and we are okay busy with the other practice that come from, you know, from the things I did like last year, but only for 2 weeks, and
mm,
so on.
mm.
So I think also this is where we are in relation to practice identity right now.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe it's also a bit more middle and it's not so
Yeah.
dichotomized as, oh, identity or dance. I am a dancer or I
Yeah.
do dance. It's now also like,
I think that's something I need to tackle next is continuity and um, because I think like my initial thoughts are, well, you're always practicing and you're always specific, but I also recognize what you mean by specificity, and I wonder if for me it'd be different because it's a continuity, it's a returning to the same thing or a continuation, like following a flow. Like in improvisation, if you keep dropping something and moving off, like it's still specific, you know, it still has a specificity, like it's unique to that person and that time, but maybe it doesn't have the same specificity as if you were to stay with something a little bit longer and go with it and be more intent and demonstrate something very unique through staying with it. I mean, it's one of my biggest frustrations when I see a dance piece where it just keeps on adding new things,
mm,
and the language or the sort of the content, the sense of what the singularity they're talking about just seems to get washed out because it just keeps on adding new and new imagery or mechanisms or qualities to the point when I can't grasp if there is a thread at all aside from are these bodies are moving on stage. And that frustrates me because then there isn't this sort of specificity. But then that you can have lots of changes and it can be anchored through a concept which feels very specific um, as well. So yeah, talking
it's
about
true.
practice.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you for also bring. It's very inspiring to be dancing with you because you're very busy always, and you really are like, okay, now I'm busy with this, and I stay with that. And it's also give a calmness of work of labor. You know.
Wow. Yeah, thank you, Yari. Because in my head, it feels like I have no consistency. Let's dance. Let's practice.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What a dance.
What a dance.